Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, a previous foster parent of many troubled teens. I've also raised 4 children of my own. I'm an author and I teach all over the world about the principles of self-government, which relate to communications, family relationships, and self-mastery. In this video, we're going to be talking about what social emotional learning, SEL, is and is not. I've been teaching social emotional learning for well over 20 years, before it was even a popular thing, before it was a curriculum. And I can tell you what social emotional learning is not. We're going to start by talking about what it is not, and then we'll talk about what it is and how you can better teach it and use it in your life. Years ago, when I started doing treatment foster care for troubled teens, I realized that what I really was doing was helping to train them socially and emotionally so that they could handle a lot of their difficult backgrounds. So the children that came to my home came for treatment care. They all had different processing things that they were dealing with. They had different abuse situations that they had in their past. There were some pretty bad things that had happened to them. Some of them were different races. Some of them had different sexuality preferences. But they all had one thing in common, and that was that they needed to know how to handle their differences socially and emotionally and not get stuck in a bad place where everything felt bad all the time, and I knew that I needed to help them. So back in 1995, Daniel Goleman, who was a medical researcher, he researched the brain, he wrote this book called Emotional Intelligence. Now, many people that teach social emotional learning never read this book, and this is the book that started the whole movement. Now, the things that he shares in this book are actually pretty powerful things, but I don't think that people fully understand the premise of the social emotional learning, and so they have a tendency not to hit the mark. We're going to talk about what Mr. Goleman said that social emotional learning involved and how we can better teach that to our children and to ourselves. But before, let's talk about what social emotional learning is not. Social emotional learning, or SEL, is not about affirming something. It's not about affirming every choice or feeling or desire that a person has. That's not what it is. In fact, if anything, affirming is a type of manipulation. If one of my foster children came to my home and said, "I hate my parents," and I said, "That's a great idea. You should hate your parents. Okay, that's good. You carry on with that." If I affirmed that, that would be ridiculous. If I had a foster child come to my home and say, "I hate food, it makes me fat, I don't want to eat food," and I said, "That's fine, you never have to eat food again," that is not good training. It's not good leadership. It's not good social emotional learning for that person. In fact, you know what it is? It's entitlement, which leads to more manipulation and striving to control other people. No matter what a person's sexuality or background or race or religion or political views or ideological views or whatever it is, no matter any of those things, a person should not just be handed excuses. Many times I've noticed in social emotional learning curriculum, or when I've heard teachers who present this curriculum to children talk about it, they start speaking in a way that sounds like they're just giving out excuses to children, which is not empowering. In fact, it almost sounds like they're just looking for an oppressor or a bad guy so that the child can have somebody to blame for their misbehavior or somebody to blame for their pain that they have to carry. This is a problem. There was another book called The Coddling of the American Mind that was written a number of years ago that talked about 3 untruths that our society is buying into that actually is setting us up for a lot of pain and disaster, socially and emotionally. So the 3 untruths were: follow your feelings. This means that if I feel something is unsafe, it must be unsafe. I cannot make myself okay with this this at all. I will be disabled if I stay in this setting. This means if I feel anxiety, I must cater to the anxiety. I must follow the anxiety. I must indulge in the anxiety. What type of a treatment foster parent would I have been if I told my children to indulge in all of that? I would have hurt them. They would have not made any success. So follow your feelings is a really bad piece of advice. It's an untruth. This doesn't mean that sometime we can't feel convicted or feel like that is the person I love or whatever and follow that feeling. Of course, that can happen. But we cannot just follow every feeling. That would allow us to be controlled by anyone because every ad agency is trying to control our feelings. The second untruth that was brought up in Coddling of the American Mind was the untruth that what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. This goes against every motivating movie or book I've ever read or watched. Don't we see ourselves as a people who overcome? True social and emotional learning should create more freedom, not more bondage. So this means that a person needs to be empowered to overcome, to drop the subject and leave some things behind. When a person follows that second untruth, they will always feel broken and they will always have to find somebody to blame, which leads me to the third untruth that was brought up in Coddling of the American Mind. The third untruth was there are good people and bad people. So this means everybody's hunting for the bad guy, who's at fault, and everybody else gets a free ticket. Well, no. If I have two children who are arguing with each other, one of them probably did not use a skill I've taught them called accepting no answer, as they were trying to take something from one child. The other child that retaliated was not using another skill that I probably taught them called disagreeing appropriately. Both of the children did not handle their social interaction or their emotions well. They both need to be instructed and taught and corrected. And in my family, they would both be corrected and they would get the opportunity to earn an extra chore and practice that interaction the correct way. That is good training. And there are many skills that we can teach our children that will help them have greater success. Now it's time to talk about what social emotional learning is, what it should be. And I've been giving some clues into that as we've been going along. But before I get to some of those main nuts and bolts, click that subscribe button. There are so many great videos here, even other ones dedicated to social emotional learning that will really help you as you're trying to navigate this very complicated study and learning called social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is actually a principle called self-government or self-mastery. Some people in the therapeutic world might use a term called cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically, Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence said that when a person has true emotional intelligence, then what they understand is that there are three pieces at play before a person has an emotional reaction. So piece number one is the feeling. They're going to get a feeling from a person, or they'll experience a feeling based on something that happened. And then after they get that feeling, they will have a split second where they can have a thought. That's phase two. I'm going to have a thought. What do I think about this feeling? Do I think they're attacking me? Do I think I'm not safe? Do I think, should I seek to understand? Do I think, can I disagree appropriately with them? What is it that I think during that time? Then the third phase is, how am I going to show? What is my emotion going to be? How am I going to emote? There are productive thoughts and productive emotions, but there are also non-productive thoughts that lead to non-productive emotions. In fact, when we see people being contentious with each other, we know that they are following non-productive thoughts to the path of non-productive emotions. And this leads to the arguments. I think there are a lot of people right now in the world who think that because I feel something, I am now entitled to act emotionally toward another person any way I need to because I have this feeling. And this is how I know that social emotional learning has gone wrong. And we need to make sure that we keep things focused on self-government. When a person governs themselves, that means that they understand the cause and effect of any given situation and possess a knowledge of their own behavior so that they can control them. So this means that they make a plan for how they want to behave in a certain situation. And if you're a parent or a teacher, you've got to help them develop this plan, right? And then after they have have a plan, including skills. So there's another video on social emotional learning on this channel. I'll tell you about it at the end, where I talk about the 4 main skills for social emotional learning. And those 4 skills are going to be huge. So the parent or the teacher is going to teach the child the skills. And then that child is going to have something they can fall back on in a minute. They will have practiced them, maybe role played the skills. They'll know how things are going to be corrected to help train them in a forward direction. So that child gets the opportunity to practice a situation before it even occurs. This is going to help them develop the right thought and emotion for those upcoming feelings that they could experience when they're in the real life of it all. There's so much more that we could talk about on this SEL topic. It's a big topic, and really social and emotional issues are facing children around the world in such a way that they never have before. We know we need to do something, but I really hope that the way that we promote social emotional learning is sound. True, pure social emotional learning helps a person not get stuck in their problems. We don't leave them in a place of pain and hurt. We teach them they get to choose if they're going to be happy. They get to choose if they're going to govern themselves. So they need skills to do that. And I would like to share those skills with you. There is another video that is meant to follow after this video, and it is called 4 Social Emotional Learning Skills That Guarantee Success. Go to that video, get those skills, start teaching them now. Adults and children all need them. I'll see you there.